I was an early adopter of Stadia, Google's cloud-based gaming service. I got their Founders Edition bundle, what was it, way back in November 2019. The service really didn't work great for me at that time. Some months later, something clicked and it just started working fine. And it still does to this day. I don't have any issues if I want to play on here. But there's been a big topic of debate concerning services like this and the way they go about their business. Is this the future of gaming? Personally, I don't think so, not at this time. Maybe in the distant future, but there's just so many things that are in the way of this hitting like, mass market appeal, right? With Google Stadia, there's been a lot of news coming out lately, and there was like some spikes in people jumping into this service, either getting free, controllers and Chromecasts, or when Cyberpunk came out, a lot of people jumped on this to try it out type of thing. I mean, you have to buy the games. That's part of the issue here. I mean, obviously you have to buy games for the most part, unless you're a pirate, right? But you pay for Pro, you get 4K streaming, better audio, that kind of thing. And like, as we're scrolling through here, all these free games, which they're not free. You're paying to get access to them. It's just a perk of paying them, right? If you don't pay them, you don't get access to these games anymore. There's some cool stuff, some weak stuff, everything in between. It's all subjective, right? If you don't pay for Stadia, you get 1080p, stereo audio, and I'm sure there's other restrictions. You don't get any of these free games, right? You have to pay for everything. If something new comes out, you're buying it. And for me, that's part of an issue on my end. Like, I like to buy a game and own it. And I know people will be like, well, you buy a game, you're just, physically, you're just buying the license to play it on that media. You're not actually owning the game. I understand how all that works, but having the physical media, that's not always the case either. There's a lot of games that means jack shit. You buy the physical media and servers go down and the game's no longer accessible. That kind of crazy stuff, right? It's not the 90s anymore, my friends, but I like having that physical media. Because what if this service just shut down? There's been so much talk about the possibility with Google's track record with all the different services that they've had in the past that they just squashed. Was it because they weren't profitable? Was it because they lack like focusing on one thing and just doing it great and they just kind of forget about it, move on to something? Who the hell knows, right? So we just got this statement from Phil Harrison. This is the big thing. Focusing on Stadia's future as a platform and winding down SG&E. He's the vice president and GM of Google Stadia. His name may seem familiar, right? But he put this statement out. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Essentially, it's just saying that SG&E, their development studio, is no more. They're not going to be producing games for their own platform. They're not going to be developing anything. And that company, from what I understand, they published a handful of titles for Stadia, but they really haven't done much of anything anyway. So, okay, is this the end of the world for Stadia? My question is how many installed active users are there on Stadia? Because I can't find those numbers. I've been searching all day. I remember like early last year, there was like the 1 million download mark, which means jack shit because people download stuff that they don't use all the time. Like, how many active users are on Stadia? And is it something that Google sees as being, positive, right? Because it's so hard to find out actual numbers here. But yeah, that's what's in the news today. A lot of people talking about this, that, hey, Stadia is like disappearing now. Google's forgetting about them. And it could be that road they go down. This could be the beginning of it. I mean, maybe it was the beginning of it when Stadia came out and people were realizing what kind of service it was and how everything worked and how not everybody who would want to use something like this can actually use it with data caps and all sorts of crazy shit. It's not mass, there's not a mass appeal for something like this in that segment of people who don't have a console, who don't have a gaming PC, who have internet access that could utilize this, but they have data caps. So that like squashes that. And then how many people just don't have access to that kind of internet, stable internet, to use these kind of services? I think it may be just too soon for all these companies jumping into this stuff. If they could sustain it, okay, but who the hell knows? The only thing I could find with active users, and I'm not a rocket scientist when it comes to graphs and, bar graphs and whatnot, because when I first seen this shit, I was confused at first. You know what I'm saying? Because I seen all these bars, these colored bars, right? Green for Xbox, blue for PlayStation, Steam is red, and then Stadia is like this pinkish color, right? Um, I was like, what does this mean? This is for Destiny 2 real time activity for players, right? This snapshot was from 3 hours ago. And if you don't understand these graphs, this could be a little deceiving because you're like, okay, these are game modes and how many like percentage of players are playing it. And okay, you're like, wow, so Stadia, there's more people playing on Stadia and Patrol than there is the other systems? No, that's not what this graph is representative of. You have to look at this graph, this little like circle pie chart freaking thing, right? So this is representative of 100% of the player base of Destiny 2 3 hours ago. How many, like the percentage of players on these platforms? 28% was on Steam, 38% on PlayStation, 33% on Xbox, and then a little tiny 1% on Stadia. So out of that 1% of the whole user base, 33% of that 1% from Stadia was playing Patrol. So if that explains it a little better. So 1%, you wouldn't expect Stadia's numbers to be the same as Xbox or Steam. There's just no way. And this is just a snapshot of one game. This isn't the overall health of Stadia as a whole, but it gives you an idea of a popular game that I'm sure there's other more popular games. I just can't find graphs for them of, you know, how many players in the full player base are actually playing it. And 1% sounds pretty freaking low. I don't know what number that actually represents, but as a whole, it's very small. I would expect it to be a bit bigger, nowhere near any of the other companies, but yeah, that speaks to a few things. Not everybody who wants to play the games that are available on Stadia are going to play them on Stadia because there's not that much in the way of exclusives. There are some, but there's nothing that screams come to Stadia to play this. I know there's a lot of people out there who are against exclusives. It should be on every platform, and you know, I've got a lot to say about that. If there wasn't exclusives for consoles or certain things, then like everybody would just be playing on, you know, PC, and there wouldn't be any consoles. Sony, you know, everybody would just be making games for PC type of thing. I have no issue with exclusives for the most part, other than when there's really shady things going on there. But Stadia just doesn't. They don't have anything. Like PlayStation has stuff that makes you want to play on PlayStation. Xbox has stuff that makes you want to play on Xbox. Steam has fucking everything. It just has everything. You know what I mean? If there's a game you want to play, most likely it's on Steam, right? So these numbers make sense to me, but Stadia is just not getting that piece of the pie for this particular game anyway. So I don't necessarily think right now this is going to catch on. Do I feel at some point Google will fold this and just say, fuck Stadia? It's possible. I'm sure it's in the terms of services that you agree to when you buy shit through them. Like, hey, you could lose this because you're just buying this license for a finite time until the service is no more. And that's a scary thing, man. That's why I wouldn't hope this would be the future of gaming. You know, there's other services like this that I've played, like Luna, Amazon Luna, still in beta. And I do like their approach a little bit better. You're not buying games. You're just almost like Amazon Prime Video. You go on there, you got so many videos you have access to for paying for Amazon Prime. Now, if you want to add stuff, say you want to add Stars, you want to add HBO, Shudder, you want to get those horror movies in. I need to get sponsored by those guys. Holy shit, I love Shudder. I've been paying for them. Shudder, like give me some money, man. I just said your name. Fuck, give me a promo code, bitch. But you know, like that, you can add channels and you pay an additional fee. That's how Luna works. I can appreciate that service a bit better because you're not buying games that you potentially will lose in the future. You're paying a subscription for access, just like how Netflix things will rotate out. And that sucks too. Let me know what you guys think. Was Stadia just dead in the water from the get-go? Is this the future and we just don't realize it? I don't think it is, not right now. Far distant future, past my time, maybe. Peace out, guys. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye and boom, thumb butt.